What's going on, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. Time for Nick at Night, my weekly comic book review show. Let's get into the books I read this week. Starting over in Detective Comics, we have 1085 Rom V. Man, Batman is back in Gotham right now. He has leveled up both mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever it is. The journey out of the desert, man. He's back in Gotham right now, ready to kick some ass. He's actually aligning himself with some of his rogues gallery to help him, win the day, right? And it's pretty interesting to see the different people that he's teaming up with right now and like the reasons why they'd be willing to help him. So I'll let you guys unpack all of that. But it's really cool to see him teaming up with like non-conventional teammates. I will say that there's a really cool Batman design in the front half of this book too. It's got this like dark, gritty, just demon-esque style to it, which I really appreciate. Things are building, man. The Orgham's on their side. They're building up their ranks as well. Some more mysteries to unpack. I can't wait to see where Rom takes this story. Detective Comics, I think Rom has a few more issues left on his run, but I'll be sad to see it go. But man, I'm waiting for one heck of a conclusion. What do you guys think? Speaking of Batman, we have Batman Dark Age from Mark Russell and the Allreds, issue number 3. We're halfway through this series right now. Another spectacular read. I know we are saturated with Batman books right now, but this Elseworld take on Batman is just so unique because we ultimately get to the same place that we all know and love. The end game is the same. It's just a different path up the mountain, which I really appreciate. I love all the satire that Mark Russell can bring to a book. Just the alternate reality origin story. It's just really cool to see how he unpacks all that and connects all those dots that we know and love. Pariah is in this book, completely depressed about the inevitability of this world. Meanwhile, all the other board members at Wayne Enterprise are just worried about short-term profits. And he's basically sitting in here talking about their momentary fragments of consciousness that's wasted on the vastness of time. It's just like, he has such a way with words. Absolutely love it. I like all the action in this book too. Like, this is a Bruce Wayne that was in the war, man. He came back home. He learned how to be Batman through those means. Totally different than the Batman we know and love. Still teaming up with, the different members of the Justice League. We unpack that a little bit more. And we realize that Batman has different tactics, a different vision for how he would like to take care of crime in his area. And he doesn't quite align with the other Justice League's like approach, right? And so that was a cool little thing as well. 6 issues of this series to go. There should be a Wonder Woman one coming eventually after this run is done. Really looking forward to that because Superman Space Age, Batman Dark Age, and Wonder Woman, title to come soon, is going to make just like a great little set. If you haven't been reading these, definitely check them out. They are awesome. All right, time to jump over to some Marvel. We have Twilight Avengers issue number 6 from Chip Zdarsky, and we have Daniel Acuna on here doing the art. And I will say that this was a spectacular issue, a spectacular run. So if you have not been reading this, it's over now. You can get the collected edition fairly soon, I would imagine. If you're a shop, this is a great story to give your readers if they got introduced to the movies first, perhaps, and they want a great Avengers run, something that they can start and finish fairly quickly with amazing art, a great story. This is definitely a direction you should point your customers, so be sure to do that. Like I said before, it is a great Avengers story. It's set in the future where there's like a dystopian landscape that is, ultimately secretly ran by the Red Skull, and we get to see how personal Red Skull makes a lot of his advancements, right? How he's designed this future using very specific people around him to do so, and how he's leveled up his game and basically has tried to take over the entire world, leaving the Avengers, a very old and still capable Avengers, to come in and save the day once more. Some of the beats in here are going to be familiar with like the Avengers movies or other stories that we've seen. A lot of these characters are going to be obviously characters we all know and love. There's some new folks that they sprinkle in here with the same monikers of characters we know and love, which is really cool. A little passing of the torch perhaps in there. But this story in general has so many great moments in it, like hair-raising moments. And I think he just handled it really, really well. Some parts are a little predictable, but like every fault is forgiven just because of how gorgeous and beautiful this book is. And it's just a complete story. And that's all you can really ask for when it comes to these kinds of books. Just a well-rounded, extremely well-drawn, captivating story with just great moments. That's what this was. Issue number 6 completes the series. Make sure you read it in collected form if you weren't picking up the single issues. Next up from Marvel, we have Hellverine issue number 1. Picked it up for that amazing Eastman cover. Dude went really hard on this cover, but went ahead and read it anyways because it's a new number one, and that's the point of number ones, to trick people into reading them, right? So Benjamin Percy is on this one, and I will say the issue does a great job of catching the reader up, right? If you did not know about like the relationship between Wolverine and the Spirit of Vengeance Ghost Rider, if you didn't realize that like Mephisto had like a prized demon that was unleashed on the world and was taken hostage by some government secret corporation that found a way to weaponize it and merge Wolverine to that, and that caused all kinds of mayhem in the past, don't worry, they're going to tell you all that stuff inside of this book, and it's not going to really bog the book down, to be honest with you, but I think it kind of delays the progression of the book just slightly, but it was all forgiven because it was kind of like a fun story. Like, it was interesting to see this demon, you know, come back, and there's a lot of mystery about how that could possibly be. This agency doesn't remember bringing it back. It remembers it being taken care of at one point, and Wolverine's kind of confused too because he used to be the vessel for this demon in the past. And so, you know, it's back in action right now. It's kicking some ass right now. It's killing a whole bunch of people. You know, they kind of deserve it, I guess, is what they're trying to say inside the story. But there's a lot of mystery about how this can be the case. We get a reveal at the very end pointing us in that direction, which was really cool as well. So if you don't know anything going into this, which was pretty much my case, it's okay. They're going to give you a lot of information, so you're going to be fine reading this single issue. Let me know if you read it, though, down below. Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 5. We have Hickman on this one. Kaketo's still not on the art, but that's okay because this issue is a little less talking head compared to the previous issue. It has a little bit more action towards the back end, and so it's not nearly as boring as the previous issue, although narratively speaking, that issue did push the story forward because it gave us some clues on some really important relationships that are blossoming right now. This right here explores Harry's early days when he took over the company, right? His father passed away. He inherited the company. He started to meet some really important people in this area, Wilson Fisk being one of them. We were introduced to Wilson and what his capacity was in Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 1, and he's trying to take over everything like Wilson always does. Now, there's a layer above him with the Illuminati, who's basically controlling the entire world from the shadows, but Wilson's trying to do whatever he can do to get his piece of the pie, right? He's trying to leverage Harry and some of his connections right now and some of his resources, which leads them to uncover a lot of technology in these hidden basements and the Stark Stern building. And, you know, it kind of puts him in the direction of, you know, teaming up with Spider-Man, getting with Peter Parker, and developing that relationship, and maybe taking on corruption a different way as superheroes, right? And so it did provide a lot of context that we've started to unpack in the previous issue. So together, these last 2 issues work really well, I think. You get some more of that talking head stuff towards the back here, but it's now layered with the context that we have, having read the other issues, so it actually executed pretty well. So issue number 5 of Ultimate Spider-Man. I've been loving the series so far. I really can't wait for Kaketo to come back on the art and just like kick it off again. So let me know if you read it down below. All right, let's go over to Dark Horse real quick with Dawn Runner. This is issue number 3. Rom V is on this one. Evan Cagle, Dave Stewart, and Aditya Bidikar on here as well. So the first issue, I think, was not a great introduction to this universe. We got the ideas of the universe. It's basically a portal opened up, a bunch of monsters dropped in the middle of a city, wiped everything out, but humanity kind of fought back and developed like a cage around this zone, right? And they developed mechs, and they made a sport out of taking on these robots, or taking on these monsters rather, with their giant mech suits. Now, there is this new highly advanced mech suit that just came out called Dawn Runner. Their best prized fighter is piloting this thing, but it actually has this like Neuralink capability. But when it's used, there's like an unpredictable reaction because of it. And now she's actually able to tap into a past life of a person that lived in this drop zone where the monsters drop, and she's able to communicate with them, which adds just like this really interesting layer to it, because to him it's his present day, but for her that happened a long time ago. We're well past those events, but there's a lot of mystery about the children and things like that, what actually happened and what she's really experiencing and how she's experiencing it. We figured that out in issue number 2. Now it's like the repercussions of all this, like the wrong people are understanding she's able to do this, and what are they going to do to kind of like, I don't know, turn that on her or use whatever personal leverage they have against her to fulfill whatever other needs that this company has. There's going to be a lot of interesting things coming off. So this is the issue that got me really interested in the story, to be honest with you. Issue 1 was a cool introduction. left us guessing a lot. Issue 2 uncovered a lot of questions for us, or gave us a lot of answers rather. And then issue 3 is just kind of pushing it forward even more. So my interest is peaking on this one. Let me know if you read it and what you guys thought. Death Ratioed, Mark Russell, AWA. This is a one-shot right here, and I highly recommend picking it up, especially if you're into Mark Russell's writing and the satire he can bring on like a potential future landscape. So this one right here is pretty cool because we actually feature a guy who was in a coma. I think he was in a coma for like 20 something years. He wakes up in the not too distant future, but this whole entire world, the culture has completely changed right here. And it's very much adopted like a social media validation, like dislike system in its culture, to the point where people are wearing collars right now, and the people around them can like or dislike them based on their actions, their attitudes, their statements or whatever. And if it gets to a point where your ratio is out of whack, you have way more dislikes than you do likes, your head actually explodes inside this universe. Now, the entire system is changed drastically. This guy is living in a system, or this guy's remembering what it was like before his coma. Now he's waking up in this environment and having to learn all these different rules. And so he's like, he's going out there with the advice of the doctors, like, hey, you need to find a clan. And so he auditions basically for these different clans, but he can't quite get in the right mental landscape to like want to be part of this society at this point. So there's tons of commentary on how social media is maybe taking things a little bit too far, putting out like the worst parts of humanity on display, and what could potentially happen if things go a little bit too far. So there was some obviously layers of comedy throughout this entire thing. He does eventually meet up with some people that he remembers from his past life, and some of them have gone to like the extremes to go underground and try to fight the system, and then others are trying to show him a more peaceful path, right? Like, we got to get out of here and we got to like continue the great work we were trying to do back in the day to put society on the right track. So Death Ratioed, it's a one-shot. It's a really interesting book full of satire, has like some dark comedy and some foreboding things about the future and how social media is basically jacking us up. So check this one out if you haven't yet. Let's talk about Universal Monster Creature from the Black Lagoon, issue number 2. We have Dan Waters and Ram V, I guess, sharing the writing duty on this one. We have Matthew Roberts and Dave Stewart on the colors. Now, I did not really enjoy the first issue, probably because the bar for the Universal Monsters line of comics coming out was set so freaking high from James Tynion, and it was Martin Simmons on Dracula. That book was like spectacular. Like, the art was incredible on that. The character is just really intriguing too. Creature from the Black Lagoon, it's fine. It's a fine Universal monster. You know what I mean? Hasn't been one of my favorites growing up when you compare it to like Dracula. You know what I mean? But with that said, the story itself is also a little bit weak as well. So we have this woman. She's basically been the victim of this one serial killer. She was drowned and was found unconscious. She awakes, and she's trying to track this guy down because he's a serial killer now in the jungle, and he's using the jungle and like the crookedness of the landscape, the police force, the society there to like hide some of his murders. And coincidentally, there is the, Creature from the Black Lagoon in the same area here taking out these guys. We don't exactly know his motives, if he's in like a protective mode right now, but he does take out some of the cartel guys, things like that. And so you have this serial killer now on the Creature from the Black Lagoon's territory. Can they coexist? Probably not. And so you have this other girl who's aware of the creature and also aware of the serial killer, and like that dynamic's going to play out as well. So there's a couple things going on in here. This issue was better than issue number 1, but the book still hasn't grabbed me. I just respect Dan Waters and Ram V and this art creative team as well so much that I'll keep reading it to see where the story goes, because I think they deserve the benefit of the doubt. Creature from the Black Lagoon, issue number 2. What you guys think? All right, lots of Ram V and Dan Water references here, but this is Dan Waters' Six Fingers, issue number 4, the complementary piece to the one hand that Ram V is writing. The sixth finger is the one from the serial killer's point of view. One hand is from the detective's point of view. So if you want that full picture, make sure to read both of those. Want to make sure people are aware of that. In the last couple of issues, we're starting to pull back that veil a little bit and trying to understand this, whatever this power is that our serial killer has, whether it's like an inherited power passed down from person to person or being to being throughout time, whatever it might be, we're starting to peel back the layers on that to understand what the hell is actually going on. I'm afraid that this issue here further complicates things, to be honest. We have a killer here who's trying to understand his powers. It seems like it's clear to him what's going on, but I don't know if it was conveyed enough to the reader what exactly is going on. And there are some references to like some really old societies out there that I don't know if this power has been going through time, going from person to person. Maybe it's soaked into the land, into the city itself. I am not entirely sure, but there's a lot of confusing things still happening in this one. I need to like unpack, or they need to be a little bit more on the nose with some of this stuff, I think. And then from time to time in the story, there's always a reference to like the main character not realizing who he is or what he is, even though he's having his own revelations that might not be totally clear to the reader. So it's like, okay, if our main character thinks he knows what's going on, but other ancillary characters that might be in the know more than he is are questioning their actual understanding of themselves, that's not even clear to the reader yet. It's like, man, there's just like layers of just confusion for me on this one. Still a fun ride, and I have no doubt that they're going to vet all this stuff and figure it all out as they bring the next issue of The One Hand in here and then ultimately wrap the series up. But I feel like there's still a lot I need to learn. There's still a lot I need to figure out. And maybe it's all between these pages here and I'm just not able to comprehend it. Fill me in the comments below, please. Let me know if you read it down there. All right, Jason Aaron's conclusion on Once Upon a Time at the End of the World. This is issue number 15. Great conclusion to the series, I think. And honestly, I was a little bit rough on this series as it got into shifting away from the futuristic view that we got from time to time at the end of the first few issues. But our couple here, man, they've gone through hell, honestly. From the very beginning, when they first met, when they set up their like little civilization in their town and they recruited more people and it was like a free love kind of a society trying to make things better. There was an ultimate like corruption within that leaked out, and it just completely corrupted them, which forced them to go on their separate ways. They caught back up in the future right here, and they're basically trying to undo all the mistakes of the past, right? She set off and made a new set of Rangers who ultimately come back and try to fight the good fight, right? To destroy this, basically this reality engine or whatever it might be that Marco has put together. The whole point of this structure is to bring back the green, right? This is a desert landscape. And so we're trying to bring back this paradise, might ultimately save the world. So that's what they're trying to do right now. But it's just a beautiful story about a couple who started really strong, really hot and heavy. Stuff happens, man, during that time, and you might fall apart, but at the end of the day, you can come back together and try to do the right thing and try to save the world, whatever that might mean to you. And so really great story, a lot of emotion, a lot of heaviness inside of here, and it's not necessarily left open, but there's certainly more story that could be told, but I think it's just packaged really well. So at the end of the day, like a collected read would be really good with this one, and just know that there's just so many things that happen. There's a lot of progression that all makes sense if you just read it all in one sitting, or if you just read them all and not just skip a few issues here and there. So Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, issue number 15. Highly recommend the entire series. If you haven't read it yet, let me know if you did down below. All right, and the last one we read this week was Grommets issue number 1. Rick Remender's on here, teaming up with Brian P. on the writing duty. And this is a cool book if you're into like 80s nostalgic skateboarder vibes. I would definitely try this one out. We are basically following the new kid. It's one of those new kid story showing up at a school, trying to fit in. He's a skateboarder, trying to figure out what crowd he wants to get into. Of course, he runs across some jerks and stuff like that, but there's one guy who seems ultra authentic who takes him to this epic skate park right here where he can show off his skills and other people can kind of, show off to the girls and stuff like that inside of here. It's layered with like 80s and 90s humor too. So put yourself in that mindset. I think it's really cool. The art is really interesting too. There's so much stuff going on, lots of things to look at, beautiful coloring in here too. So you feel immediately engaged with the characters, with the vibe, with the feel. It takes you right back with all the shirts and the language and just the main attitude. Like they do a great job of bringing me right back to the 80s and 90s. So props to them for that. I think towards the end, I think this is a story where they're going to have some kind of a cosmic entity or cosmic twist on it, and I'm all for it. We see a little hint of that towards the end right here, so it's going to blend like that 80s slice of life stuff with like some kind of supernatural or cosmic thing, like an ET kind of a thing, right? And so I think that's going to be really cool to see how that plays out. And yeah, props to the team. Cool story, brought me right back. Great art as well, amazing coloring on this one, intriguing story, has some questions at the end, perfect pacing and everything. So check out Grommets number 1 if you haven't yet. All right, guys, that's all I read this week. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down below in the comments what you read and what your favorite books of the week were. While you're down there, like, subscribe, share, hit the bell notification to be alerted whenever I put out new videos. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the comments.